Every resistance movement runs into two forces. The first is the power it challenges, of course, the state, the institution, the abusive authority, generally built to preserve itself. Second's more dangerous. We call it friendly fire, and it kills resistance. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history at the University of Southern Denmark and Johns Hopkins, and the author of A Resistance History of the United States. Friendly fire comes from the people who you think are allies, who say they agree with resistance goals, but work, consciously or not, to restrain the disruption required to achieve them. They force resistance into their acceptable channels. They slow walk it. They weigh it against stability, order, norms, comfort. They look for reforms that ease pressure without challenging the source of the abuse. It's a core dynamic of resistance history, one that sucks, a painful one, but a core one. Oppression is enforced by power, but it is preserved by restraint and those who do the restraining. Dr. King named the force, did it from Birmingham jail. The white moderate, more devoted to order than to justice, not the Klansman. The ally who agrees with your goals but not your methods, who believes he can set the timetable for someone else's freedom. Their comfort will always find a way to accept your costs. That's friendly fire. And it comes with a body count of historical proportions. Now, ICE has always been a feature of America's abusive authority. It has a long history and lineage in this country. We have been here before. This has happened before. An armed force authorized by the federal government to invade you so that they can go after people who they say are a threat to America. They are the enemy, the other. Bound by the law's penalties, but not by its protections. They have no rights that a white man is bound to respect. Stand in their way as a black person or a person of color, and you become a statistic. Stand in the way as a white person, and you're a domestic terrorist. But at least you get headlines. We have been here before, all the same forces, operating in all the same way. After the Compromise of 1850, in the dark days of the First Republic, the forces of enslavers freely operated across northern cities as agents of the United States government. The Fugitive Slave Act gave them these extraordinary powers to snatch people and just disappear them. The law demanded that ordinary citizens, against their will, assist in captures or face prosecution, get in their way, and it'll cost you. They can do whatever they want. And it turned the entire country into a hunting ground. As Thoreau and others spotlighted, it turned, Boston into a suburb of Alexandria. Massachusetts was no better than a northern county of Virginia. That's what the moderates of the 1850s enabled. Not the enslavers, the moderates. Those champions of the Constitution and America's institutions who claimed to oppose slavery while building the machinery that made it inescapable. Daniel Webster, Massachusetts' own senator, defended the Fugitive Slave Act on the Senate floor. He attacked radical abolitionists to boost his credibility with other Southern moderates so that he can position himself better in the confines of the Senate. He told Northerners to respect slavery where it existed and go along with helping the enslaver agents return people to bondage. They're enforcing the laws. Don't get in their way. Don't agitate. It's law enforcement. You'll just make things worse. The Union, after all, has to be preserved. The Constitution has to be honored. Webster knew that was an evil bargain. He said as much. Then he demanded that the evil bargain be kept. The founders were great, you know. William Seward played a different game, one that's just as instructive for understanding friendly fire. In March 1850, he rose in the Senate and delivered his famous higher law speech. There was a law above the Constitution, he declared. A moral law that condemned slavery, absolutely. He opposed all compromise as radically wrong and essentially vicious. He warned the South that slavery was doomed. Like a J.B. Pritzker social media post, he moralized and condemned without actually compelling any action. But the speech made him the leading anti-slavery voice in Congress, a hero of the resistance to the First Republic, such as it was then. But then watch what happened. Those seeds, sounding like moral clarity and a Congress of cowards, could bear fruit. By 1850, Seward adjusted his views and distanced himself from the radical resistance who had championed him, but recognized that something actually needed to be done. Seward's moralizing wasn't moving anyone, and the deaths, the beating, the rape, the exploitation was expanding. By 1860, when he grasped for the Republican presidential nomination, Horace Greeley and other radicals opposed him. Angry at his shift to the comfortable middle. And so by 1861, as enslaver states seceded, Seward kept seeking peaceful methods of resolving the conflict. And then as Secretary of State, he told Lincoln to wait on the Emancipation Proclamation. Not even that was right. The timing was off. The politics weren't favorable. Always another reason to delay, even to delay against the smallest of steps. This is the trajectory. The closer Seward got to power, the more he wanted to stay there, the more he privileged the position over the work. So the higher law gave way to career management. The man who declared compromise radically wrong spent the rest of his career looking for the next compromise in order to protect it. I call this the Madison Rule. I go into this a lot in the book. The twisted framing that weighs a present abuse against an impossible abstraction in order to shut down opposition. From the ratification debates to the final crisis that broke the Constitution, it was, we can't do anything about slavery because it'll fracture the Union. During that crisis, it was, we can't move on slavery because it'll fracture the coalition to save the Union. And then after the crisis, it was, we can't move on slavery's legacy on black equality because it'll fracture the Union's restoration. It maintains the actual harm we know to real live people, however evil, against a benefit that can never be measured. But it became a mantra of the First Republic, then a habit of the nation, and it was reinforced by nationalist history through to the day until it operates as a kind of suppressant against resistance itself. Don't act, the Union is at stake. Let those people keep getting hurt, because if you move to stop it, our people could get hurt. There's always a reason to wait. And the reason is always the comfort of the people who aren't doing the dying. Meanwhile, the enslaver agents kept snatching. They dragged Anthony Burns through the streets of Boston in 1854, guarded by, 2,000 troops? State militia, federal soldiers, police, special deputies, a small army mobilized to capture one man and return him to oppression for the financial benefit of a few others. The loyal opposition made that possible. Their compromises, their deals, their endless calculations about what their politics could bear. Now, the non-resistors, their supporters, William Lloyd Garrison's moral suasionists, claimed to oppose all this too. They were the folks so convinced of the moral superiority of their arguments, of the power of their education and opinions and culture, that the moral arc must bend to their voices. So they published newspapers, they gave speeches, they organized meetings. But when Thomas Sims was captured in 1851, the Boston Vigilance Committee was trapped by their commitment to moral suasion and legality, while a black man named Lewis Hayden was ready to break down doors. Fast forward to an important hero in American resistance history, Alice Paul, one of my favorites. She learned the same lesson in 1917. Her National Women's Party had been picketing the White House for months. When America entered the war, the pickets continued and the arrests began. Paul and her militants, her radicals, were sent to the Occoquan workhouse. Beatings, forced feedings, tubes shoved down their throats while guards held them down. Now, the NAWSA, the mainstream suffrage organization, the respectable wing, condemned them. Didn't defend their free speech, didn't protest the torture. Carrie Chapman Catt, who ran them, told Paul directly, "I will fight you to the last ditch." Not the anti-suffragists, the allies. NAWSA had power in that moment. Public sympathy was building as news of the abuse spread. How'd they spend that power? Against the resistance, not the enemy. When Woodrow Wilson finally endorsed the 19th Amendment in 1918, the NAWSA took the credit. Paul and her resistance, who forced the crisis, who forced the rupture, got almost none. Renee Good is dead, shot by an ICE agent in Minneapolis on January 7th. American citizen, 37 years old, mother of 3. Alex Pretty is dead, shot by Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis on January 24th. American citizen, ICU nurse at the VA, legal gun owner, no criminal record. Video shows his phone in his hand when they killed him. And they're nowhere near the first. ICE has shot and killed at least 8 people since last year, with dozens more dying in ICE custody. They just weren't white. Now, more than 3,000 federal agents now occupy Minnesota under Operation Metro Stupidity, whatever they're calling it now, the largest immigration enforcement deployment ever carried out, according to DHS, if you can believe them about anything. Federal officers with extraordinary powers operating in American cities, terrorizing communities, killing citizens. The parallel to 1850 isn't a metaphor. Congress made every American city a hunting ground for people the regime demonized as a threat, then and now. So watch the institutionalist spin. Senate Democrats call it appalling, unacceptable. They use the word terror. They use the word fascism. Chuck Schumer says Democrats won't provide the votes to advance the funding bill. Chris Murphy, that guy, says we are not powerless. We do not need to accept this. So they have leverage. They're advertising that they have it. And institutions exist precisely to convert that leverage into process instead of disruption. Take a look at what Patty Murray admitted while announcing her opposition. Americans must be eyes wide open that blocking the DHS funding bill will not shut down ICE. ICE is now sitting on a massive slush fund it can tap whether or not we pass a funding bill. She's telling you the fight is already lost as far as she's concerned. Not because of this vote, but because of the last one and the one before that. The big, beautiful bill passed in July. Every Democrat voted no. It passed anyway. It gave ICE $75 billion. That's the slush fund. That's what makes this week's showdown a pageant. And that's the moral calculus they do not want you to add up. Every surrender doesn't just enable the next expansion of abuse. It ensures it. The Compromise of 1820 created the framework for 1850. The Compromise of 1850 created the Fugitive Slave Act and the framework for Kansas, Nebraska. Each moved the line towards the enslaver's goals. Each was defended as necessary for preserving the Union, but each made the next expansion of abusive authority possible. The pattern isn't failure. It's just the way power functions. When a government wants to target people as enemies, to dehumanize them for the political and financial benefit of a few, it needs legislative cover. So what do the institutionalists do? They give it. They provide it. They lose the next fight. They provide more help. Then tell you blocking the next bill won't stop anything because they've already made sure it won't. What's left is providing an amendment for body cameras to do what? Record the next killing they funded. This is Seward's trajectory, Webster's cowardice, the same body, the Senate, the higher law speech, then moderation, then caution, then restraint. And this is the Madison rule in real time. Wired just restated it for the modern audiences. So clear, it's like it was written for me. Democratic lawmakers have few options that wouldn't trigger something like civil war. The Madison rule. Webster defended the Fugitive Slave Act because the Union had to be preserved. Seward moderated because the coalition to restore the Union had to be managed. The NAWSA condemned the militants because their respectability had to be maintained. And Senate Democrats will demand their reforms because, what? Stability, peace, norms have to be respected. As weak as our institutions are, they're still our best hope. To fight the fascism or authoritarianism they keep naming, all to keep their jobs in the November elections. That's friendly fire. Killing American resistance in 1789. That's all I've got for you today, folks. Alonzi.